Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the continent you are. Today we have a guest with us, and it's Carlos Diaz from Global News Group in Argentina. Carlos is the general manager of Global News in Argentina, and he agreed to join us, even though I woke him up fairly early. So, Carlos, thank you very much for joining us today. And I would like to first of all just give you this stage and ask you to introduce Global News for us.
Thank you, Romina, for this. First, let me say I think it's very important for our industry to be staying together in these moments of strong separation. As for Global News Group is the largest MMO in Latin America. We're a 20-year-old company with offices in 9 Latin American countries and a further 3 more countries in which we have franchises. We cover about 5,000 print media all over Latin America, from the Rio Grande all the way to the Falkland Islands, as well as more than 700 TV and radio stations in the whole region. That's about it. 400 staff, 20 years, not much more than that.
Nothing much. Yeah, just you say it
Yeah.
so lightly. I just like that. I was, like we normally talk about the situation for our businesses, for our companies, for let's say our staff members, but we all know that these days we are going through a very very special. I don't know how to call it, but it's just like a very special moment in time in which all our life ways are being, let's say, changed
Mhm.
abruptly. And I was just wondering what's the situation that you are going through in Argentina, in Latin America, because in Europe, let's put it like this, in Europe now we have summer and the contagion rate is a little bit more under control in not
Mhm.
everywhere, but in most places. So things are loosening up, but we are all aware that this is not the reality that we are all going through. So that's why I was interested in learning a little bit about how is the situation on your end.
Well, to be honest, being resilient is almost a part of the Argentine and the whole of the Latin American DNA, basically. So for us, adversity is just every week. We thrive in crisis. We thrive in not knowing what's gonna happen. However, um, for a company that has staff scattered around 9 countries in about 15 offices in those 9 countries, it's hard. I have to say it's really hard to be able to keep in touch with all of our staff, to keep morale high. And we've been doing as much as we can. We've been trying outreaching everywhere as much as we could, helping financially, knowing that many people were not affected, but their families were, and they become the breadbasket in the family due to the hardships brought on by the virus. Um, and it is a diverse region because you have countries such as Argentina, in which we're going for 100 days of lockdown. Um, yeah, with the economy only in April, the economy went down 26%. The GDP went down 26% year on year, only in April. Where we haven't seen the numbers for May or June, which will be even worse. So Argentina is one case, but then you have countries like Chile or Uruguay. Uruguay had a very brief, very light lockdown, much like the Swedes, but it worked. Uh, Chile had a mishmash of lockdowns that kind of worked, but now aren't working, so no one knows what's going on. You have countries like Peru or Paraguay where the lockdown is worse because access to the internet is not as common, because transportation was already bad and now it's almost inexistent. Um, so there's very different scenarios in the whole region. And for a company like ours, we have to be very keen on every scenario and what's going on everywhere to be able to confront all of them, modify the way we're working in all of these scenarios, and at the same time be there for our staff.
Yeah, that doesn't sound anything like easy to handle or to, I think you're like a juggler at this point, just trying to, to
I've
do
always juggled, don't worry. I've always been a juggler. Very bad one, to be honest.
Oh God. Yeah, but I know what you mean. As most of the FIBEP members know, I'm also Argentine, so I
Yeah.
absolutely understand what you're talking about, and I couldn't agree more. It is in our nature to be creative in times of difficulties and crises. So I yeah, of course I have my heart in the region. So this is yeah, it's very hard, and I really do hope for all of our families that things get, let's say, a little bit better soon. But maybe you were, of course, mentioning that this situation is clearly affecting you both in the private life and in the work life, and each region has different situation, and for that situations, and for that you had to, let's say, be really creative uh, in the way you react, and you adjust your structures, I guess, and your working methods. So I mean, in the last 3 months, I guess you have been doing several different experiments, working from home, and communications and all of this. So moving forward, I mean, I know it's a very difficult question to do for a general answer, but maybe if you want, you can just focus in one of the countries or whatever you think it's best.
No, no.
Um,
We, to be honest,
how yeah.
I believe that go with
No,
finish
I
the
was
question.
just going to ask, how are you managing the working organization? I mean, moving forward, do you think you're going to remain with home office, or are you going to have some sort of mix, or are you reducing, let's say, the office space and just, renting some of it, or what ideas do you have in mind at this point?
Well, first, just a little clarification. Even though we are a company that's scattered all around the region, we tend to try to make our policies stick and the same everywhere. We like a Global News employee to enter any office in the region and have the same rules and all of the same culture in the same place. We try to at least.
Yeah,
Try.
consistency, I would say
Yes,
it's
we
important.
yes, the problem is, a company run by Argentines, consistency for us, it's like a secret magic thing. But we try. At the very least, it's an idea we'd love to import from Europe, like most of our things. Um, as
Great.
for what we're planning on doing, so before lockdowns were set up in Latin America, we already had our own home office policy in place. So we had a policy whereby a person could have up to 3 days a week of home office based on performance, previous performance, of course, of the last 3 months. And they could have them or lose them based on how well they were performing. Uh, they weren't implemented in all of the countries. One of the countries was in the last stage of implementation, which was Peru. And given the situation, we had to implement it there too quick enough. But we were already prepared for such a scenario. In fact, in March, we implemented a mandatory lockdown for all of our offices, no matter what country they were in, including Uruguay, a country in which there was no lockdown, to be honest, and Chile, which to this day legally there is no lockdown, but our employees are all working from their homes. Um, Having said that, we are not having a major planning for the future regarding our office space. We do plan on having more a more dynamic office space. We're currently building our new headquarters here in Argentina, which we were hoping to have done by December, but we will not. It will probably be done by mid next year. And the whole building was thought from the ground up to have much more mobile workspaces whereby our employees can move along both the office and their home and the office. Now, I do believe that home working has to have certain limits to ensure the employees can have a home life separated from their work life. And that is something that we still have not been able to come up to appropriately in the whole region. And that will end up coming either through legislation or through the action of different community leaders. And we are trying to work very hard on providing that safe space for the employee to say, wait, I want to go to the office. I don't
Mhm.
want to be forced to work at home.
Right,
Um,
right.
okay. So,
Yeah.
in a sense, uh, for us, it's always business as usual because our industry is always business as usual. But we were already implemented these changes, and I think COVID just helped us in some countries try different things that
Mhm.
we weren't yet ready to try. But besides that, we're still online.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, that's the important thing, to keep on working, as you say, business as usual, and make sure that your teams and your employees are safe, which is, of course, crucial in such times. And of course, I mean, I guess you already had this in place as well, because if you were already experimenting with home office and different schedules, I guess for internal communication with employees and your teams, you have stuff like Slack or Teams or some others in which you communicate. Do you plan on keeping that in the next months, or did you
Uh,
choose for one?
we've been using Slack for a couple of years. We tried Teams. I hate it. I'm sorry, Microsoft. I really am. Uh, I hope you're. Well, they are a client now that I think about it. But I'm really
Whoops.
sorry. I hate Teams. I've always hated it. Um, I love the Office suite. I'm on a Windows machine. I hate Teams. Slack we've been using for a couple of years. We've tried other things. To be honest, I'm not much of the death of email kind of guy. I do like email, but um, I think we're trying right now to work on not moving towards using Slack or Teams as a fast way to communicate. Uh, we do have WhatsApp too, which is very fairly popular in Latin America. But implemented more processes inside the business, especially regarding to communicating through ticketing, so that there is a much better way to follow through,
Mhm.
even when you're not close to a person. And I think the pandemic actually has helped us a lot. We've just implemented an open source ticketing system, and it's working. Um, and it was very hard to convince internally the teams that there was a need for it until the pandemic hit, and every all of a sudden, teams were trying to understand. Well, if I'm asking Team A is asking Team B and he can't see them, how does he know what's the status of the ticket if he can call him quickly enough, etc. And that actually helped, as a selling point for us to be able to standardize much better the way we communicate between teams. Now, I don't think Teams, the program, or Slack, or Telegram, or WhatsApp is, a one-stop shop or a one-stop fix for a problem. I think it has more to do with setting up processes on top of it, and be able to sell those to the people that use them. And I think this was a great opportunity to do that.
I see, I understand. And how about event management and attendance? Of course, right now during the lockdown, nobody can go anywhere, anyways. But I guess, I mean, we are all seeing, we have like AMEC doing digital congress, and we at FIBE, of course, are as well considering this possibility, and it will be likely to be the case because
Yeah.
doing a presidential congress, as much as we would love to, and just have those beautiful nights at the bar, talking, and everything, it's just not likely to happen, at least not this year. So how about event management? Did you make any experience of your own during this
Well,
lockdown?
we've been we've been working very hard on internal events. I think keeping morale up while you're not seeing anyone and being able to hear how morale is doing is important. And so we've been having a lot of internal events, or trying to have at the very least. We're going to have our first region-wide event, which is an event in which our management team will speak to all 400 of our employees in the whole region at the same time, and with all of them, which we will have, I think, July 14th, so in a couple of weeks, where we've been working for that, and we see the pandemic as the opportunity for everyone to see us, everyone to be able to, for us to have some accountability that we don't usually have with so many people in so many countries.
Mhm.
Um, we we've been trying to work into client events, but actually it has been hard. I feel people are busier than ever. I think being at home has made many people very busy, which makes sense. The pandemic has brought a whole new set of needs to the communications community, to our clients, and it's very hard to get their attention right now when they're concentrating in countries like Argentina, where businesses are closing like flies. Communications directors are much more focused on, well, what is newspaper A saying about the 15 people we have to fire, or the 300 people we have to fire, than you
Yeah,
uh, measurement event.
yeah,
And that's a reality. In a moment of crisis like this, such events, for our clients in our region right now, are not something very worthwhile. However, industry events I see are an opportunity, because we do have more free time as an industry right now in certain respects, and we can use them to grow. And as you said, I'm one of those who are supporting, well, both the AMEC event. I think it's a great idea to have virtual event. I'm an AMEC board member, and I'm completely on board with that. And I think a FIREP event would be a great thing. And initiatives such as this webinar series are the right way, the right path right now, where as an industry we keep growing, while at the same time taking advantage of the separation that's happening.
right, right, absolutely. And of course, I just like by listening to you, I guess you are constantly trying to think on ways to move forward, because there is no other way at this point. Have you been working on repositioning your organization for, let's say, a post-lockdown world, or however we want to call it?
Well, yes, not repositioning, but we have seen the pandemic as an opportunity to position ourselves in certain markets in which we were in position. Now, as a regional organization, we do have a privileged position in the idea that we have instant access to the news, to what's going on in all of these markets. And so when everyone has the uncertainty of, well, what's going on with the pandemic everywhere in Latin America, we created a very quick product in March, which has been working very well since, whereby we tell all of our clients uh, at the first hours every day what's going on with the pandemic in each country. We analyze what the news are saying, what the data says, what's going on in Brazil. Brazil is our main trade partner, so Argentine companies are super scared. Not only are we on lockdown for 100 years, but what the hell is going on with Brazil that has thousands of deaths and no one knows what happens? And so we try to not reposition ourselves, but take advantage of this privileged position we have and of all of this data, to further the idea that we can be there, not only for their local needs in all of these markets, but also for needs that they didn't even know someone could provide for, such as the regional need.
Right, right. Well, this is absolutely a really um, real USP that you have there, and I'm sure that this is very well received by basically everyone that is having bilateral or multilateral relationships commercial wise across the region. And how about your competition? I mean, of course, as you described it, there are many businesses that are closing, and we are, of course, we are trying to do business as usual, but this is affecting the whole industry as well. So how about your competition? Did they reshape, or were they, I mean, is everybody still there? Let's put it like that.
Well, in March, I'm gonna tell you a little story. In March, we offered all of our clients that had to cancel our service temporarily during the COVID crisis. We offered them to provide our service still for free in the countries where there was a lockdown. Um, and immediately I got calls from our competitors saying, "Are you dumping on our clients?" Thinking that we would offer their clients our service for free. And I told them, "Look, I'm going to talk to my sales teams," and I did. And we're not going to go for your clients. We're not going to go sell to your clients. We're trying to help the industry. We're trying to provide for the industry. We're not trying to take advantage of this situation to hurt you. And actually, I think it helped. I think there are countries in which we have seen a few companies go bust in the past couple of months. Peru has been one, Brazil is another, and I think there is a reckoning coming in Mexico soon enough. Um, but in the other countries, our industry is quite stable right now. Um, Argentina has been quite hit by the crisis. I think no one else is as hit as we are. But luckily, the industry here is it's fairly concentrated, and I think for us, we can still go on easily in this market. And our competition has been able to work with the government to remain on. Um, I do see that, and I've been talking with some of our competitors about what they're implementing. Some of them weren't ready for home office the way we are. Many were very reliant on, radio and TV workers working from the office and not being able to access that feed from outside, and print having to be scanned. A lot of print having to be scanned, but I don't think I think they were all up to the challenge. I
Mm.
think there was much more fear for companies grasping for the last wind and trying to cannibalize each other. And the first thing we tried to do as the largest player in the market was talk to everyone and try to calm them down, tell them we're not gonna go and dump anyone. We're not gonna go and try to cannibalize or take advantage of the situation. We're going to help our clients because we want to help the industry, but we're not going to go attack you. We need to help each other. And
Yeah.
we even offered a couple of companies, look, we know you can't, we know right now it's going to be very hard for you to be doing radio and TV. Don't worry, we'll do it for you temporarily. Then you'll go back to it once COVID ends. And I think in some cases it might even end up being a business opportunity for them and for us for the future.
Well, this is actually really great to hear, and I think it's a really great way of approaching such a difficult situation, which is in the end, yeah, as you say, affecting everybody. And I think it's great to just say, hey, we are all having this hard time, and let's not cannibalize the market. Let's just try to keep everybody up and running, because it's in the end the best for everyone. So I find
Well,
it great.
well, you worked in the Argentine market, so
Yes.
you know what it is when everyone's trying to, up their ante and lower the bid uh, year after year. You end up destroying markets.
Yes, absolutely. You end up destroying your own business. So I
Mhm.
think it's a great thing, and it's a great example. I would say it's a great example to just just sit in a round, well, let's say sit in a round table, and yeah, well, these weird sentences that we have in our heads and are not no longer
Yeah.
real. But
No.
yeah, sitting in our homes talking with a cup of coffee and just trying to figure things out. So yeah, I think it's the right thing to do. That's what I wanted to say. And you were of course mentioning that there were difficulties due to technical, let's say technical conditions to get hold of radio and TV content maybe. um I don't know how exactly it is in Latin America, but I don't think it's much different to in this sense to what happened in Europe. In most countries, traditional print media suffered the most under the COVID-19 crisis. Did your company's media offering change due to this crisis? Did you experience the same? I mean, maybe not for print, but how about, I don't know, online media offering or social media podcasts?
Well,
Like, did something change there?
so uh, there's this thing in Latin America whereby in certain countries, less literate countries, countries in which literacy is less prevalent, tend to have a higher uh, incidence of print. Meaning, in regions in which less people know how to read in Latin America, since reading is literacy is growing very fast,
Mhm.
more people end up buying newspapers because it's seen.
Okay.
It's a there's a class perception. There's a perception that reading um, is an act of superiority in many countries that in which literacy has been going up, and people and newspapers are still fairly popular. Now, what the crisis has done is in certain countries, um, as you say, print media went down. Those countries that had a lockdown in place had a decrease in the amount of content that print media would publish. So we didn't see many print media close, but we did see them, reduce fairly strongly the amount of pages they would publish. And we're talking about in the office we call it going Cuban style, because I don't know if you've ever seen a Cuban newspaper, but there's 8 pages that go through the censorship and that's it. They, and they're Cubanizing temporarily, whereby you have newspapers that are couple
Yeah.
pages, 16 pages for a newspaper is like a joke for industry. But and this has happened in the beginning. It happened in Argentina fairly quickly, and then as everyone, as the crisis normalized and everyone got normalized into being on lockdown, newspapers started growing back again. But
Hmm.
you see some countries in which there is less content. In Paraguay, in certain parts of Brazil, in Peru, the the amount of print content has been reduced. However, what we have noticed is since people are much more in their homes, the amount of content on TV and radio, especially the amount of news content, the news space has increased. But due to the fact that there is one prevailing news, the pandemic, news content has decreased. So we have many more iterations of the same type of news piece related
Hmm.
to the same news. So it has changed a bit in the way we analyze media, and even we talk to clients about what they should be getting. Because, for a client, being mentioned related to COVID can be very bad, but getting all of the mentions when there's so many, it might not be in their best interest. It might be something much more for the measurement part to analyze, how they're doing, how they're performing. So it changes a bit how they use our products, um, and that's how the panorama has changed regarding the media here. I
Mm.
think everyone can agree anywhere in the world more people are reading online news, but what I didn't expect was more people are watching TV, and thus there's much more news space on TV.
Yeah, actually, that's really interesting. I mean, we we have been talking a lot about, I mean, different webinars and grab-a-buys and the different digital initiatives that we have up and running with FIBEP. I mean, the topic of exclusive deals, or let's say the veracity of news and trust in media. I mean, these are topics that are everywhere. I mean, as we all know, they are not new topics, but they are everywhere. I mean, and there are clearly fields of growing interest. I mean, from your perspective, what role should the media intelligence industry take in this regard?
Well, we are an industry. Well, FIBEP is an industry body, and the media intelligence industry has to stick up for some things. I do believe, and in what regards to the topic of exclusive deals specifically, I believe they are completely anti-capitalistic. There has to be a fair price to access content. Content is a public thing, and we can't be having this 19th century type of uh, artificial monopolies uh, created by a couple of robber barons and the industry not doing anything about it. So I think the industry does have certain responsibilities back to the market, not just for companies to be able to grow more or to be strong, but because we do have a kind of moral responsibility to give back to the market that we created, to ensure that the market is still a fair place to do work. I like to go back to bed and sleep with a cool head and a nice set of hair, by the way. But I do like to sleep like a baby. I don't like to feel that I'm in an anti-ethical industry. I like to feel that our industry is doing whatever we can to ensure that the capitalistic conditions in which our business is performed are as ethical as it gets, and that's part of us, having those fields of interest, and our company saying, well, we're going to put resources into helping FIBEP in their battle against these anti or these pro-monopolistic tendencies in between the media and certain companies, whereby you're creating monopolies that cannot be broken by sheer quality or innovation.
Right, right. Yeah, no, this is something that is, of course, concerning all of us equally. I mean, there has been several discussions, as I said before, and FIBEP is clearly trying to contribute to the industry as a whole, and trying to, as far as possible, to ensure that there is an equal access to media for everyone. And we, of course, want to do our part. So I think it's very important and really crucial to hear, let's say, the CEOs of our industries, like talking about this, and listening that we are all on the same page is of course reassuring to know that we are going and we are heading into the right direction. So I think it's great to have the support of the Latin American region is of course great for all of us, for the FIBEP family, let's say. And I was mentioning before also just the aspects of trusting media and fake news. I mean, this is something that was discussed in extent during our last Congress in Peru. Um, does Global News have experience working with publishers amid, for example, trusting media? I mean, not talking about the exclusive deals anymore, but actually trying to contribute to ensuring trust in media in times of infodemic.
Well, I'm sure you know, but just to clarify, our founder, Laura Garcia, has been working on the idea of trust in media and on media for the past 10 years. Now, Laura has been very strong on the topic and on the idea that there is an infodemic. I've heard her speak about it many times, and as president of FIBEP, she was very adamant on having it as a topic last year during the Congress, which was in Peru, and which I found to be very enriching for us and for our industry. Um, and as a company, we've always have had this idea that we have to work with the media to help them show their value and to help them create that trust that the the rest of the ecosystem currently is losing in them. You can see that the media are not seen as beacons of trust, and we can find a lot of reasons for that, but we are actually a tool that they can use. We've worked here in Argentina with Facebook and fact checkers to help them, fact check using our database, which is a way to know if something was or it wasn't on the media. And it's worked fairly well. We're working right now to do the same in other countries where we can work with fact checkers, we can work with the media to help them brand a news piece fairly easily, where it originated and whether it sounds trustworthy or not, where that source is a trustworthy source. So we're working and we're going in that direction, guided by Laura. Yes.
Yes. Well, I of course I was aware of Laura's passion for the reliability on news, and this
Yeah.
is I talk to her here and there, as you might know. But I was actually really interested in asking you on having, let's say, the right mentor for such a topic in house. I was just actually interested in learning how it was applied within your services. That's why I was really keen in learning a little bit of how you were handling this topic. And yeah, so I think it's a very good way. I mean, there are different initiatives, and I find it's crucial to guarantee the access to all media for our clients, but also we need to make sure as the experts in the field that our clients can trust that what we are delivering them is really what they are supposed to be looking at, and where the reliable information is. So it's a great example again on how to apply it. I think it's Laura is going to be happy to to have her voice heard
Yeah.
also here. And like, since we are talking about the changes a little bit in the market and in the situation, was there, I mean, you mentioned it a little bit before, that in terms of communication there are different needs or different difficulties that the clients are facing as well, just like everybody else. Was there a change on your service offering or maybe your target groups? I mean, you said that you were positioning yourselves in areas where you maybe weren't positioned before. um
Well, we are in the middle of a shuffle in our service offering. So I wouldn't say it's because of the pandemic. We did have certain changes done. We launched services more related to the pandemic. We've always provided a service through WhatsApp, but now we're doing much more custom, tailor-made WhatsApps related to the pandemic, so that you know um, geographically based alerts for different clients that are much more tailor-made to certain places where they are, where their factories are, and where their main offices are, and providing that to the communications team so they know, the municipality of the where your factory is has just announced that there are 5 cases in that region, so that they can act quick and send a press release saying, we know that this has happened, but we already have implemented all of these measures, and they can always be on top of the crest of the wave. I'm not, right behind. So we've changed a bit the configuration of our services, but the basis is still the same. We're still providing the same services, the same way we've always provided. We just had to, tweak a few things to cover better the pandemic and to find those slight changes in their needs that are more related to urgency that wasn't that common. All PR professionals have to be used to urgency, but certain industries are much more used to it than others. Now with the pandemic, everyone has to be a bit more urgency aware.
Right, right. No, absolutely. And do you think was there any? I mean, of course, everything that has to do with communication in crisis times is it's key right now. Um, did you perceive any other new requirements there?
Um, we do have a crisis service, and we have a few crisis. We have a specific crisis package, and we had a few crisis clients that had crisis. Not gonna
Mm,
mention who, uh, which hired those packages during the COVID. We didn't
mm.
have new or very specific services asked because of COVID, to be
Right,
honest, or the
right,
pandemic.
right. And as a voice for let's say for the Latin American side of the business, let's say, of our industry, do you have any additional recommendations for members that are going through
Well,
the same thing and maybe trying to look into the future and plan strategically?
well, as an Argentine, I would always recommend members vote well and remember to vote. That's it's important. If we go to the polls, it's important. But besides that, which sounds basic, but it's not. I assure you, if only we all voted well. Ah, democracy. What a
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
thing.
If I can tell you one thing and maybe without getting political, I am one of those Argentines living outside Argentina that fly like 600 kilometers to
Of
vote at the embassy. So
course.
I'm also crazy like that with democracy and voting and stuff. But let's
Good.
maybe talk about it after the interview.
Of course. Um, I do I do feel that many of us are very scared about, the day after. And well, the lucky thing we've had is that in some countries, we have test beds for the day after. Like I've tested what we're gonna implement in the rest of the region, the day after strategy. I've tested it in Uruguay, which is perfect. It's a small office. There's about 27 people there, so it's very small. I could use and test different things, and the day after I have already planned for the rest of the region, and and that's a lucky thing for us. But what I think right now related to how we would recommend is we shouldn't be that scared of the day after. I think the pandemic, well, we'll move through it. We're not the greatest generations. We're not defeating, World War II, but we will be one more generation remembered for its resilience. And we will move through it. We will move through the pandemic. Business as usual will still be business as usual. And I think we shouldn't be that scared about what could happen the day after. Once the pandemic is done, we will be able to have more incremental change and not so disruptive change. And everyone right now thinks everything will be disruption right the day after. And I think once we're all settled down, settled back at the day after, there will be changes. All of the crises bring changes, and that's great. Um, Except if you have them every 2 weeks, then no, that's awful. Ask Argentina. But but I think we shouldn't all be thinking, oh, it's gonna be disruption all the way. No, there will be changes, but we will have time to implement those changes. There will be incremental changes. People, some people want to go back to work. We've done a few test beds in Latin America. People ask us if they can go back to work. We tell them no, yet. But we will have opportunities to implement change, and there is no right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. And finally, how do you think that FIBEP could help your organization to cope better with let's say with the pandemic?
Well, I think it helps when organizations such as FIBEP provide content for the employees to peruse during the time that they are not in contact with the rest of the company. Mainly because it is a good way to remain in contact with the industry to feel part of something bigger. Um, I also think that right now FIBEP has been actually helping us a lot with that, and that it can keep helping us in a way through these kinds of communications, these kinds of webinars and things. They work. They are something. that helps us a lot.
Well, then I'm happy. I'm happy that we can contribute. I mean, this is clearly a time in which we need to try to stick together, as let's say as much as digitally possible, and like and try to share our experiences and try to learn from. Maybe, as you say, you have the possibility to testing what's going to be after, because you have Uruguay as a market. I mean,
Hmm.
and several other regions, or our members in other regions are, let's say, in a completely different phase of the pandemic. So I think it's great if we share. I mean, we still don't know whether we are. I mean, we all hope. I knock on wood, of course. We all hope, but that we don't have a second wave coming. But if they would, like it's always kind of helpful to know what worked or didn't work in other markets and regions. So I think it's great to hear that this is a good contribution that we can do, and we will of course keep on
It
doing and
is.
try
It
to
is.
think on new ways to help. And so I would, again, I would just really like to thank you for this conversation. It's always really nice and very amusing a little bit to talk with you. I mean, it's always very very insightful as well. So so yeah, so one more time I would like to just thank you, and I hope we eventually get back to the
We'll
bar.
see.
I mean, to regular Congress, not just to the bar.
We'll see. Well, Romina, it was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much for this. Okay.
Thank you, and take care, and of course stay healthy.
You too. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.